Hello, everyone, and welcome to Acknowledging the Beauty and the Kindness of Men. The conversation continues. So this is actually the second conversation. And we're super excited to meet having people from all around the world here with us, interested in talking about this, having greater awareness about this. And the way we like to think about it is that we're actually changing the global conversation about men. And of course, that doesn't exclude women. So y'all like to say hello. We've got Sylvia Puentes and Earl Wright and Nicolas Dumont. And y'all like to say hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hi everyone.
So would you also like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Yeah, where should I start? Actually, it's quite funny because I've been living the past 11 years in Sweden now, and I'm originally from France. And one of the things that for me changed is probably the way I looked at men. Just by moving to Sweden, it was something that was totally different to what I was used to, and that's probably where I started to look at men in a different way, actually. So that's quite cool.
That is really cool. So, Nicolas, where do you live?
I live in Stockholm, Sweden now.
Stockholm.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you're an Access bars facilitator?
I'm a bars facilitator. I've been doing Access for like 2 years. And I have 3 kids now too, and that's also something that I'm thinking about when we talk men and women, and what I would like my kids to learn or to see, so they can be different with men and women as well. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Earl, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, my internet was cutting out a little bit.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, let's see. Name's Earl. Right now I'm living in Utah, near the heart of the Mormon Church, go figure. I learned about Access almost a year ago to the day. And wow, nothing's the same. My entire reality is just topsy-turvy changing and expanding, and how's it get better?
How does it? And you're also a bars facilitator, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Cool. Sylvia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, nah, no. Just
No, that's all right.
So I'm Sylvia Puentes, and I'm in Northern California at the moment in San Francisco. And I'm just really delighted. I'm delighted that I was invited to the first call. And Melanie, I'm so happy you're with us on this call, because I know you weren't able to join on the original first call. So happy to be a part of this conversation, and really, like Melanie said, being a part of changing out of this conversation, actually changing the reality of how we be in either with us ourselves as women, but definitely opening up a space to acknowledge men in a whole different way. And I'm grateful for that. So I'm excited about this call, and I'm, super happy to see some new faces joining us, and I wonder where we'll go. So, yeah.
I wonder too. And I also invited Adam Johnson, who is here with us also. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm a certified facilitator, and I'm really excited about this topic. I did the Gentlemen's Club call a while back, which was all about how, questioning all these ideas about how men function in the world, and how we can function in a different way that works better for us and really for everyone. And I watched the last call, and so many cool topics to explore. So, and not sure if I mentioned that I live in San Antonio, Texas, and been doing Access for a little over 8 years now. So lots of changes around not sure the way to phrase it, the experience of being a man, or I'd say the ease. It's changed a lot my way of functioning as a man. So I'm excited to explore this topic.
Awesome. I'm excited to explore this topic too. And, I know we talked about it on the first call, or you guys are wonderful enough to mention it. But, I was noticing all of these, different campaigns going around Facebook and, magazines in different areas, really inviting women to step into their power, acknowledge their beauty, and supporting each other. And I was like, wow, I've never actually seen this from men. And it seemed quite exclusive. And then I, think, looking historically at, the different changes with, how our cultural and how society is set up and functioning, there's been so many different role shifts between men and women, and and then there's everything in between. So I hope no one feels excluded that we're not talking about the, transgender, and there's so many other parts, and people who are really asking the question, who am I? Here's the way I've been, defined. Here's what I'm identified as. And it's a whole set of qualities that I have allotted to me. But really questioning, is that true for me? And what other choices do I actually have? So, yeah, this really all stemmed out of just creating a post on Facebook and going, hey, men, would you like to be part of really looking at your own beauty and empowering men to be men, whatever that means for you? Because with, the swing of things historically, it's society really acceptable for women to be doing this. It also seems to be pretty acceptable for men to learn how to be with women different, but I haven't seen a whole lot available, for men to be really looking at, what is it for you? What is empowerment for you? What is it to be a man in a world that is sort of in process of redefining everything? So I'm really curious what that is like. And I used to think that men and women were, really the same. And what's been so amazing with the conversations in Access Consciousness is no, actually men and women are really different. So I'm really curious. I'm like, wow, men are sort of, there's sort of a set of conclusions that I have, this is what a man is, and this is how I relate to a man. And I'm realizing that so many of those are just not true. So I'm sort of showing up as a blank slate and, wondering, with you guys, it's meeting men for the first time. Wow, who are you? And what would it be like to meet each individual person and each individual man without a whole set of conclusions, without actually seeing who's in front of me. So who's in front of me?
Could I start?
Yes.
It's so funny because so much stuff showed up the last weeks and days for me, and especially today, because I've had a really interesting day, and suddenly I realized that something that we're not acknowledging, or at least I don't acknowledge for myself, is the kindness and caring that I can have and be, while so many people out there are so mean and just want to make you smaller than ever. And I was I realized that I've never understood that. It's for me, it's why would you want to do anything like that? And today I was really, really looking at that, and I was I had to just stop and use the tool of access consciousness and just acknowledge that that's not who I am. I don't have to go into this space and into this meanness and do myself wrong, because that's not what I am. And that was really, really interesting, because when I realized that, I could just let it go, and I realized that there are so many men out there that are also kind of and caring, and that cannot be that. Or of course they can be that, but they're not used to be that, and they've never been taught to do that either. So that was really interesting. I was like so grateful. I was like, whoa, tonight I have to talk about that.
I love the piece too, Nicolas, that you talked about how you've been looking to, like, it never made sense and you could never understand. And I think that's one of the pieces, as a woman being part of this conversation, really acknowledging the kindness that I actually have never bought into the point of view a lot about the definitions of men. But because I was so desperately trying to understand why people were being like that, I was almost caught up in their stories, and that maybe there was something wrong in me that I didn't see it their way. So thank you so much for what you just shared, that piece of you beginning to acknowledge how different you are, and that it doesn't make sense and we don't need to understand, yet walk around being the difference of that. So
yeah,
thank you. How does it get any better than that?
and I can share something else, and it came up after the last call, actually, where I realized too that when I was younger, I was a lot of people saw me like thought I was gay, actually, and it never made sense either for me. I was like, but where does it come from? And then people were saying, yeah, but you're beautiful and you're kind and caring, and so it doesn't make sense for a real man to be that. And I was like, what are you talking about? It was like insane in my world. But I was like, yeah, but everyone can be that. You don't have to be a man or woman or gay person or a dog or whatever. It's like, and yeah, and that's the kind of world we live in. But if we don't acknowledge ourselves and create something different, that's what our kids are raised with too. And for me, it doesn't make any sense at all. And that's not what I want my kids to be or to learn. So it's really cool to have these insights and be able to put them on the table and just release everything.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, and the cool thing about it is, as you're acknowledging, like, wow, I'm actually a really kind and caring man. And like, wow, the world is actually full of kind and caring men, even if they don't know that that's available for them to choose. When we acknowledge something, it starts to show up in the world more. Right? And as you're acknowledging it in you and being like, hey, I'm not an angry man. I'm a kind and caring man. It doesn't mean I don't get angry sometimes. But, wow, this is actually who I am. I acknowledge it. And then you're choosing to show up and be that in the world. And then you offer that as a possibility to not only your children, but every man who sees you.
Yeah.
I love what you were saying about that with the judgment and all, because for the longest time, I would perceive all of that judgment for being kind and gentle and caring and treating others in a way that men in this reality aren't supposed to. And I'd buy that judgment. I'd shrink myself down and make myself run for it. But since this is all looking at everything, it's like, you judge me. I'm going to choose to be me regardless of what I'm supposed to be. And I'm loving, and I'm really grateful for this whole conversation to come up to actually be able to look at that and choose different.
That is really cool.
But it takes a lot of courage to be you, you know? When, especially when you're a kid and you don't know anything else and you're just like doing what you're seeing. And even later when you meet people that are like arguing or whatever they're doing to make you wrong all the time. And that's probably one of the best gifts with the tools of access consciousness, that you can choose to be yourself all the time, whatever shows up.
I love that piece about being a kid, because I was so aware and so judged. I was a guy that was trying to be a piece of the woodwork. I'd crawl back into the corner and try not to seem like, I've got to be in this room, but I'm going to be as far away and as tiny and inconspicuous as possible, just from all of that, not having the tools.
It's interesting. I was bullied when I was. I recall when I first started going to school and was in that whole scene, and I used to get bullied for being an energy that the other boys considered feminine, and that more of the caring and the kindness. And as I grew older, I tried to change that by becoming more competitive or forcing myself to have more of the qualities that were considered masculine. I recall doing sports, like I was in wrestling and junior high and high school, and tried to change to be more of what I thought I should be, and being less vulnerable, being more tough. And it's taken a lot to change that and kind of, to function with the level of vulnerability that I had then when I was getting bullied, and even more so now. So it's something kind of interesting. I was wondering, like, what exactly is kindness? So I had a sense of it. Just I looked it up and in the dictionary, and I have it in front of me, and it's kind of interesting. One of the old dictionary definitions is kindness is goodwill, benevolence, that temper or disposition which delights in contributing to the happiness of others. And I get it's like the opposite of competition. It's actually desiring to create more for people. And that was like what the other kids made me wrong for. Well, the other boys at the time made me wrong for being that kindness and caring. And so it's interesting of the whole, the opposite of kindness, or one of them, is like competition, desiring to desiring to do whatever it takes to win and to outcompete all the other boys and everyone, or all the other men. And so it's this whole conversation, and it seems like access helps facilitate is that shift, or it seems like the shift out of competition creates that space to function as kindness and caring, where you don't need to win against all the other men anymore. So yeah, this is really cool conversation.
I'm so grateful for this conversation, because when you talk about all this, it brings up a lot of stuff from my teenage years or childhood and everything. And I recall too, when I was a teenager, and I was hanging a lot with girls at that time, and I had two girlfriends. I always knew what they were talking about, even if I was like far away from them. And they were really annoyed with me all the time, because I was coming and saying, I know you're talking about that right now. And they were like, how do you know? It's like impossible. And it's so funny, because For me, it had nothing to do with like being a man or a boy or a girl or woman. But I realize it's just about the energy that you're willing to be, and and it's just now like all the things that I have not been willing to be the past years, just because it's not. I don't know how to put that. It's like I didn't allow myself to be that. So I'm so grateful for this conversation, because now it's like coming up, and I'm like, okay, I'll be that, whatever it takes. So thank you.
You know, it's interesting, this piece that you talked about, the no competition, Adam, that in this reality, it's a big piece, I think, for all of us, women and men. So really, like, wow, I never actually got that the kindness, I don't know, I think you might have said that it's almost like the opposite of competition, but when you're not functioning in competition, there is a space of kindness for the other person and yourself, because you're not having to compare yourself, and you can just be you. So yeah, thank you for that. And that's a piece, as I'm walking through the world now, since the beginning of this conversation, I'm noticing the points of view that come up for me around men. And I now am asking, is that actually true for me? Is that actually true? And I'm actually moved to tears, because it's not. And so I'm wondering, like, wow, like, what are we changing just to have this conversation? Because how many of us have bought that men should be a certain way, women should be a certain way? That's not even true. That if we were to step in more into receiving and being the beauty and the kindness of ourselves and others, like, what would that change in the world? I'm also grateful for this. I have a 17-year-old son, and we have chosen to put him in a Waldorf school, which is a different setting. And as a senior now in high school, I just recently picked him up from a trip he had done. And as different groups of kids were showing up from different trips that they had done, the way they embraced themselves, they hugged themselves, said hello, boy with boy, I thought, I am so grateful he has that. There's no sense, like, you know, sometimes, I don't know if it's certain settings, family, schools, whatever it may be, but you see like this, like, oh no, don't come near me, don't touch me, you know, comments like, don't be a fag, but that doesn't exist in his world. And I'm so grateful that he has that space to be kind and caring with boys as much as with girls in his world. So it is out there, and I'm grateful that we're actually expanding that even more. And grateful to have the Access Consciousness tools. I mean, we're all sharing. I've been a certified facilitator now going in my 4th year, and I know my life is different. And perhaps my son, not perhaps, his life is different because of it too, right? And many people around me. So the gift of the tools, which, you know, actually choosing to live and be the consciousness in the world where, you know, it includes everything and judges nothing, is a beautiful piece. So what else can we choose and create as we acknowledge that this beauty and kindness?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that's really resonating for me is Adam, Nicolas, and myself, all three of us stated that as kids, we were judged and pretty well beaten down for being kind, gentle, caring. And that's not what your boy or a man's supposed to be. So, and we all three of us mentioned choosing out of that to start choosing ourselves again. So how rampant is that in this reality? How many of these angry, quote unquote, mean, self-centered men are there that are just in so much judgment of themselves because they're not choosing to be who they are and choosing to follow what society is saying they're supposed to be?
This brings up the whole notion of also like just I've noticed that as I've done more access that the autopilot of how to be a man has fallen away more and more, of just like, oh, I learned from my dad in this kind of situation, this is how you handle it, or just all the men in my life, just the autopilot versus what would actually work for me, what would be honoring of me, what would create greater possibilities. And actually, like, what would it, and the question of what would it be like to be totally vulnerable and just be that in the world. So yeah, the whole kind of falling away of all the autopilot programs, and in this situation you're supposed to project a certain image, and the whole thing of, oh, you can't show how, maybe if you're struggling with something, you can't let anyone know in that moment, or that's gonna be inappropriate. So
Can I ask all of you a question?
Yeah.
All you men. So, Earl, when you were talking, you were wondering, you're like, gosh, it seems like when we're actually the kindness, that it was as if the world, wanted to shut us down. So how much is in kindness as a man a potency that would change all reality?
That's cool.
So, when I ask that question, do you perceive an energy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow. And
It's huge.
oftentimes it's huge, and oftentimes it's the energy and the people who would totally be a revolutionizing energy space and consciousness in the world who are the most shut down, because this reality is like, no, it will not be changed. We function from competition. We function from exclusion. And as a man, actually willing to embrace and have the courage to be the beauty and kindness of you, you are a force that's unstoppable. And it was something that, I was aware of when I was, putting everything together for the first call. I was like, wow, this energy, wow. And I would be in tears, like tears of gratitude. And as I would put a post or create a graphic or whatever the piece was, I was like, wow, there's actually a tangible energy here that together we're creating in the world, that is creating a different possibility. So I'm just so grateful for your willingness to be different, to actually be the kindness. And oh my gosh, Adam, I'm so grateful that you read the definition. I've never looked up the definition of kindness. It's like, wow, the men and the women of this world, we have the capacity to change everything. And if we're willing to be the benevolence and the inclusion and the kindness that we actually are, the world could not help but be different.
Another thing I was thinking of with how this call, the title is about kindness or beauty and kindness, I think it's what it's called. I was reflecting like how I've struggled to kind of see the beauty that I be, and how I know a lot of people don't, or it's difficult to kind of see themselves, other people, and they may be able to see something clearly about them, though sometimes it's difficult to really see those qualities in ourselves. And I think it came up on some call with Dane where he was talking about how you can't really see yourself. You can only kind of get a sense of yourself through the change that you create in the world. And I was just like, the other day I had an optometrist appointment, and I went in and I was just noticing how how like when I was talking with people, the people seemed kind of bummed or not very happy in the office. And as I was just talking with them, how they became happier. And I got a sense of how the contribution, how my energy and functioning with my barriers down with them, how that contributed to changing their energy, which gave me more of a sense of the beauty that I be, that creates more for people and changes the energy. So yeah, the whole, a constant theme in my life has been that not being able to see the qualities that other people see in me, and it kind of being something that I've gotten at way later than oftentimes than other people who have identified it or said that I have those qualities.
Wow, that's so cool what you said, because it brings up for me how I've been hiding so much, because I couldn't feel that anyone could receive me, and probably I couldn't receive myself either. So, but like what you said about like going in the room and just changing everything, it's like amazing. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
So can I ask you guys another question?
Go for it.
Or not a question, but I'm wondering if so this is going to be uploaded on YouTube, so it's going to be available for anyone in the world to find it. So what is it that you would like the men of the world to know? Like, is there anything that you would like to say to them? So especially the ones who who are still functioning from where you were functioning before. You know what I mean?
I'd just say it's be you. Who cares what the judgments are? Who cares what the expectations are? It's so much more fun, so much happier, so much lighter to cast off what the world says I'm supposed to be. It's, as a man, I'm not supposed to acknowledge that I'm beautiful. I mean, that's reserved for gay men. That's reserved for, and even then that's judged. What if you could choose to be you rather than what you're supposed to be?
And I would say, I notice how much men tend to function with barriers up, and not just men, women also function with their barriers up. And I would invite the men listening to this to try pushing down their barriers and to experience the world that way, and to see what shows up. That we have overall been brought up believing that there's something wrong with having your barriers down, that it's going to result in you being hurt, or it will show other people your weakness and they'll take advantage of you. Though I would encourage you to try it for yourself and see if that's really true. And maybe it will be very much the opposite, that there's actually a level of potency and power. Well, I wouldn't use the word power exactly. I'd say a potency there that can actually make your life a lot easier.
So Adam, for someone who maybe has, never heard of, dropping your barriers, can you say just a little more about it? If they're like, what is that?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Say it's trying to think of the
I know,
typically the most the easiest way that it's available kind of without like energetic awareness, I'd say, is like drinking alcohol. So it's almost like tapping into that energy of noticing what, how the barriers, how the sense of like where you don't have to defend of I'm this way or I'm not that way. Not sure telling people to go drink alcohol is good advice on how to tap into this energy, though. It's kind of, I guess, as an energetic guide, that sense of not needing to defend for or against anything. That I guess that might be the easiest reference point for a lot of people who haven't necessarily done access classes and played around with these tools more.
Cool.
So I guess or maybe asking the question, if I wasn't defending for or against, I wasn't defending for or against being anything right now, what would I, or who would I be?
I love that question. Awesome, thank you. And now that this is scripted, this is really on the fly, and I dropped that question on you guys like out of the blue. You're welcome.
And that space of barriers that you talk about, Melanie, it's interesting because there is this energy or this, it's almost like this invisible, sometimes brick cement wall that we put between us and other people. So the gift of becoming aware of that energy that feels solid, whether it's to protect yourself or defend or resist something, that imagining almost that sense of like, wow, what if you could bring that down? And the gift is that, wow, just simply in saying it. And really it's like play with it and try it. That sense of just going, wow, whatever that wall is that I've used to protect myself, defend, resist, react, I'm dropping it, I'm dropping it, I'm dropping it. And I know for me, even when I was first introduced to this tool of dropping barriers, it is a very vulnerable space. This space of like, wow, either we can be heard, or we bought that, that we required it to survive in the world. And now it's this invitation, like, what if you dropped it? And if you did, you'd have more of you. And then it's like walking around the world with that down, you see, you hear, you interact with people different. So that's one way that I play with it. And I'll notice it sometimes as I'm talking, there's this, and then I was like, I might not say anything out loud. I'll still be listening to the person. And I simply go, okay, I'm dropping my barriers. I'm dropping my barriers. I'm dropping my barriers more, more. And then there's a sense of relaxation. And then I can continue. So it's usually something I do without even speaking it out loud. Just allows a space for more presence.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and choosing to be vulnerable doesn't make you any less or weaker or anything like this, like it's commonly expressed in this reality. Choosing to be vulnerable is actually a sign of strength. It's not what the reality defines it as. So you're making yourself more if you're lowering those barriers and choosing to be vulnerable. It's exactly the opposite of what we were taught growing up as men or boys.
Nicolas, did you have something that you would like to say to the men of the world?
Yeah, I'd like to invite them to be who they are and stop hiding. I'm meeting so many amazing men and women, but I noticed that most of the time the women are going out and changing everything and sharing it, and the men are hiding. You don't usually see them so much. And yeah, I would like to ask them, what would the world look like, and what would the world be if, and that includes myself actually. So yeah, what the world look like if we stop hiding and shared what we are with the world. that's my invitation.
And a beautiful invitation you are. Thank you. So I've thought of another question while you guys were talking. So what would you, and you can totally veto my question. You can totally do that. I am not in charge, obviously. As of last time. What is there something that you would actually like women to know about you that might be different? Like women to know about men, or something you would like to say to women or ask for?
Yeah, as I live in Sweden, where there is this, a lot. It's really important that women and men are equal and kind of stuff. But at the same time, for me, it doesn't really make sense, because just by talking about that, you make it like really relevant, which make like this kind of confrontation all the time. And what I would like to say is that I think most of men just want to contribute to women. So it doesn't have to be like a fight or like we talked about earlier with the barriers. Like you have to put your barriers up as soon as a man wants something. And I get that it's not always the case that men want to contribute, but a lot of men want to. And yeah, so probably I would like to tell them, like, what if you could like receive men in a totally different way that we used to? How would that change?
I would request that they ask if they're functioning from competition, or asking am I functioning from competition with the women in my life, and is that actually creating more, or what contribution could I receive from all the women in my life and be to all the women in my life if I didn't have to be competitive anymore? And it's just this, men are competitive with each other, or at least, I mean, and traditionally and the way most, traditional ways of functioning, men are competitive with each other, and women can sometimes be even more competitive among each other, and the energy that it creates is not so nice for men. When we're having that nice energy exchange, or the flirtatious energy, to have maybe another woman like getting the claws out of just, it's not such a nice, enjoyable energy for the men of the world. So yeah, what would it take to function in a different way whenever you notice that you're functioning from competition?
Cool. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's, a lot of women function from competition, and often we really just look at what is that like for women, what does that create for women, but not very often is it brought into the conversation, because some of the competition, there's a lot of competition, just, between women about women's stuff, but there's a ton of competition that comes up in regards to men. He's my man, he's your, like, all of that stuff. And I haven't too often actually wondered what that's like for men. So thank you for bringing that up. I mean, I haven't.
You're welcome.
A lot of times those conversations will be about men, but they don't actually bring men in to the conversation. Lots of conversations around men. So thank you for that invitation. That's definitely something that I'm looking at more and more. and choosing something really different.
Cool.
Yeah. Sylvia, can't hear you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one of the things that I'm noticing as I'm out in the world now and interacting with men is that I'm noticing there's certain men that have that real tender kindness, joy of living, joy of being with people. There was just a gentleman today, and I think, wow, how often have I, or do we as women, demand that it just be directed to one person? Like, this piece of competition, like, whoa, you can't have that with her too. Like, and this, so just noticing, it's like, why, not even why, but it's like, wow, what would it take to just be an allowance and allow that space to have them be that joy? And maybe it's that energy of that is like flirtatious, but it's this energy of really enjoying other people all around. So for me, it is becoming aware where I want to just go, whoa, here. And then just going, oh no, what if there's something else available? It comes up in so many ways. So just beginning to notice and become aware of it in my world is a great gift. And then going, wow, what would I like to choose here? So what else is possible there now?
Earl, was there something that you would like to say about that too?
Yeah, the whole competition thing, it's one of those that I'm acutely aware of, and I'm also aware of just how much we all function from the way we were raised. As okay, he's being flirtatious. What's he want? And, I'm going to put my guard up, and when I'm just wanting to have a good time and play the energy and interact. It's not necessarily that we'll want to take you into a room and rip your clothes off of you.
What? Why not?
Not to say in the right situation it wouldn't be a possibility, but it's not something that's always on the mind. It's not always the first goal.
No, I absolutely love that you bring up that piece. Yeah, because oftentimes if, men are being that space of kindness and vulnerability, women are like suspicious. Even other men get suspicious. So, I wonder what it would, be like for all of us to be able to choose more of that presence and vulnerability and that enthusiasm for living that gets misidentified all over the place. But to have the presence within ourselves, to be able to be aware of what's actually happening and maybe not even have a point of view. But let people be uncomfortable. Let them think whatever they're going to think, and even enjoy toying with them slightly, if that's fun for you. How are you messing with the world today? Well, I'm being a really kind, vulnerable person. You'd be amazed at what that creates for people.
More amazing.
What? Can you repeat that, Earl?
I said it is lots of fun. It's more. I'm amazed all the time at the reactions that I get when I'm out there like that.
Hmm.
I really like the energy of being a call with so many men. It's so totally different, It's like it's so peaceful in some way. No, but the energy is so different. Like it's funny just to acknowledge that, actually.
And I'm so grateful that you did, because that was something I noticed from the other calls too.
Yeah, it was the same.
Yeah, I was like, wow, it's really different, and I was really, really moved when I watched all of you. Pardon?
I made myself wrong the first time after the call because it was like that, and then I realized, like, no, but that's who we are. So it's just different.
It is really different. And I mean, when I watched it, I was like, wow, what would the world be like if more men were choosing this? And it was like a tsunami.
Yeah, but it's so cool because we're not even used to ourselves. So we make it wrong because we're like, what? It's not like
What's wrong?
Yeah, something's wrong.
I recall a few years back, I was at an Access event, and there was like a gentleman's club gathering, or people who had done the class, and someone made the same comment of just say, "Oh, do you notice how peaceful it is?" And yeah, that's I guess how little competition are we functioning with that we're not acknowledging, and not just not just the men on this call, though. Yeah, the peace that creates.
So, what would change in the world if there is more of this space of peace in it?
Yeah, and I really love it because I've watched and listened to so many calls with all amazing women, and I was like, I can't do that. It's like, I really can't. And I realized, yeah, but I don't have to. It's not me. It's not who I am. But I just realized it now when we talk about it. So I'm really grateful.
There's something coming up for me, and I've been aware of it even in the first call, where oftentimes, and it could be a generalization or just me, but where we sometimes want to fill the space, the space with words or something. And from the first call to this one, it's really the space for me. It is a vulnerable space of just receiving the energy that you all three be. And so it's like, sometimes there's like no words, and it really is a gift to receive that. There's so much your being that's nonverbal, that's a gift of what's available with who you be as men, that is changing my world. And I don't know that I know exactly how. So just grateful that you've chosen to be on this call, and that through the conversation, you're having more awarenesses and acknowledging more. And for me, it's this ongoing, actually, willingness to receive each one of you different than I perhaps would have before this call in this series. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And I see that as women, that's also a gift we can be for men. That if we're willing to almost pause and acknowledge like who's in front of us, there is so much to receive when we step out of the conclusions, the judgments of what you should be or shouldn't be that this society says. So for me, this is the invitation it's been as a woman to be part of this call series. So thank you for that.
We actually have somebody who sent in a message on the chat. I have to get a little closer because I don't have my glasses on. This is from Celine. She says, I've been listening to you, and I'm discovering that I had no point of view about men and women in regards to competition. And in fact, I have 3 brothers, and it's like I'm discovering a point of view I didn't even know existed. I discovered that I've been so naive. Thank you for that, Celine. Yeah, it's incredible. What we're talking about, it's a different conversation. It may not be as different to us as it's actually going to be showing up as different to other people. So that is really cool. Changing point of views and people having more awarenesses of something, Well, and it's interesting. It's like actually, I don't have to go and dance that. I'm just going to take a number from you guys. I'm like, actually, no.
So I just wanted to share kind of this fun story. I started taking some salsa lessons, and if anybody knows something about salsa, as women, you're taught to follow, right? And so for me, it's been this interesting journey. It's like, oh my gosh, I so love to lead. And I noticed where I was actually really had been unkind, where it was like, okay, you're too slow, you're not, getting it, like, come on, like, and so I started playing with that, and there was this gentleman, like he, and I could almost feel his resistance or of not wanting to lead me, because it really requires a man to really lead the woman. And I go, I really like to lead. I go, so if you don't lead me, I'm going to take over, and I'm really working on following. So if you can really lead me, like, and I showed him, I'm all, that really works, But it was also this moment where I got to play with it and not make him wrong, but also show him what works for me. And so he, all of a sudden, he kind of shifted. He's like, okay. But it's been this beautiful experience of like, okay, what if none of it is right or wrong? And I actually don't have to say anything. And wherever and however he's leading, I follow. And, if you haven't taken salsa lessons, that might be a great one. But it's really this new muscle of just allowing the man to lead with no point of view of how fast, how quick, or how slow, and I follow. And so it just kind of seems to tie in with the call of receiving men, because you get to dance with multiple different men. So they're all so different. There's not just one, style of dancing. So I'm grateful for that too. So maybe that's an assignment. Go out and take a salsa lesson.
Yeah, there are so many different kind of directions we can go in with this conversation. That's, I think, one of the beautiful things about it. It's, yeah. So what about, for you guys, is, what is the conversation that you would like to be having as men in the world? And maybe there isn't something specific, but I wonder.
I like what Sylvia talked about just now, is like the willingness for women to being led, and I think it kind of it I would be like, and for men, like to be willing to lead, actually, because for us it's like really comfortable, we just have to follow most of the time. It's like, yeah, we're okay with that, so no problem. But I think it's something that we also have to learn or train to be. Otherwise, our voice are never heard, and we're not contributing to anything, or not enough, actually.
I love that thing about leading, because especially if you go into the world of dating and everything, how much as men have we been trained to try to anticipate what she wants and kind of go that angle and pretend that we're coming up with the idea, although we're trying to read her mind and figure out what she's wanting to do to go out on that date. And so how much of that is leading? How much of it isn't?
I'd like to add that to the list of requests to women is, please let us lead sometimes, even if you're used to being the leader in every other area of your life. It's nice to just have that space. Makes us feel good. So,
it's so much where I have to remind myself to wait, because there are many gentlemen that would like to open the door. Right? As simple as that. It's like, oh, if I pause enough, and they're like so happy. My son does it. And it's like, I'm so grateful. But I sometimes have to remember. It really is like, oh, stop. Wait, there is a kindness to receive that gesture. And it doesn't mean that I'm less or weak or that I can't. So, yeah, so awesome. Were you going to say something, Melanie?
Well, I was just going to say, I love receiving from men, and I've gotten pretty good at it. I wasn't always necessarily like that, but a man actually told me, like, it makes me feel amazing when you allow me to do things for you. And I was like, really? I didn't grow up in a family where the men really were choosing to be a huge contribution. There were some other dynamics going on there, and I think that's what they would have really liked to been choosing, but that isn't what they could be choosing at the time. So I grew up like, no, I just have to like handle it myself. I grew up with a single mother, and it's like, no, I can do this. And it was almost like I needed to, prove to men, no, I have it. And I had somebody, gently invite me. And the way he did it was to say, I really love it when you allow me to do this for you. And I was like, what? Because I was going, how can I contribute to you? How can I contribute to you? How can I contribute to you? And he was like, by letting me contribute to you. And it totally changed, it totally changed my world. That's a gift that I can give to, the men in my life too. So I was so, grateful for this, kind and caring man who had the willingness to ask, and he didn't make me wrong for what I was choosing. He had a request, and I was willing to listen. So yeah, receiving the gift, that you all are in the gift, that men are in the world. I think it's something that's just really unexplored. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, what's really possible. And I think it might be for another conversation, but Adam, I was going to ask you, I know in Access, in the Gentleman's Club, and in the book for women, the Salsa and Defend, Gary Nicolas, he's the founder of Access Consciousness. We have, we've mentioned Access a few times in this call. It's a set of tools and processes that, most of us facilitate and offer people in our businesses, but it's also the tools that we've used to be able to shift and change these definitions and these points of views that have made it so much easier. But Gary Douglas, he's the founder, and he's done these classes, one for men and one for women. And he's like, men and women function different. So there's this conversation about it's actually a total flip. Like, in this society, is like women, you're the nurturers, you're the child rearers, you stay at home. And the men go out into the world and forge new frontiers. And Gary's like, actually, it's the opposite. Women are the warriors of the world. And then so I was wondering, and I know we've gone a little bit over, maybe it's a different conversation, or maybe you can touch on it. What do you think?
Yeah, there is so much to say about that. But I must say that after I read the book and heard about this concept, and I was really looking at it, because I was like, at first my reaction was like, no, that's not true. But then I realized, like, I actually enjoy like being a father and staying at home with the kids and taking care of them, and it's like even more fun than going out there and bringing the money to the family in some way, So I really, I guess it might be different for everyone, but there is something in it.
I love to be at home and cook. It's kind of funny. That's my, I love to be at home and make food items, which is kind of a domestic thing. So I have seen that it is like everything's the opposite of the traditional notions of how, the men are out being the providers and and there's so much fluidity of that. We don't have to fit into these roles of just being the provider or just being domestic. So also this conversations and reading the books have given me awareness of how much fluidity there is around all of that. And life's easier that way to be able to function in a way that works for me versus trying to fit into the right role.
Yes. Well, I'm so grateful for all of you. You know, there isn't actually a whole lot of words, but tons and tons of gratitude. Thank you for you, and thank you for everything that you've been choosing and stepping into, everything that you've been unhunting, in yourself, and your willingness to show up and be like, hey, this is what a man looks like. And that's what a man looks like, and that's what a man looks like. And that's what a man looks like.
Yeah.
And that is whatever you say it is.
I'm grateful you had the awareness to ask the questions and get this whole conversation started, because it's blowing everything apart. There's just so much change in my reality because of it, and I'm just thankful for it.
Awesome.
Just one last word I'd like to. We haven't talked about men being men with men, and actually that's something that would be interesting to talk about too. It's not only like men and women.
Are you asking for another call?
I don't know. Just saying.
Something tells me this conversation can keep going and keep going and keep going.
Well, someone in chat said yes, please, with exclamation marks. I think it's 4.
So there's someone named Harry, and she's saying in the end of the chat box, thank you for being all that you be in total vulnerability. I appreciate these conversations so much.
Thank you.
And really grateful for all the people that are choosing to be a part of it. Like, we each are a contribution. The fact that we're choosing to listen now or the replay, there's something here that's calling to you, whether that you already be the space of allowance and kindness and gratitude for men. So share it. If there are people in your world, if you play on Facebook, share it on your timeline. I mean, what would it take to just inundate the world with the replay of these calls for people just to begin to even question what their points of views are, if they're true or not? And what if that can begin to change more than we'll may ever know?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm definitely willing to continue the conversation. And what would it take to get even more men to come, and be part of this conversation also?
And men of all ages, really, all ages.
Awesome. Well, how does it get any better than that? All right, so stay tuned. Wherever you watch this, there may be an invitation to sign up or get information about the continuation of this conversation. Oh, well, awesome. Until we meet again, may all of life come to you with ease and joy and glory.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Wait, Sylvia, will you take a screenshot?
Already done.
You did it? Yes.
You didn't see me? I was busy.